So now let's plan ahead for for tomorrow, and then throughout next week as we take this on. So we think about what we need to do to set your students up for success to master the criteria of understanding what reasoning is at a high level. Let's first do what would the rollout of explaining this criteria to students be, and let's plan out what that will look like, and then we will then also plan ahead with one question for tomorrow that's coming up.
Okay. So we've got the 3 criteria. I guess I want to introduce it by saying like, okay, so like rocketeers. Do you think it's worth doing like a catchy hook with this, or just jumping straight?
I would jump straight in, and we could even use, even at the practice of that, we could use this question. So we could say rocketeers, we could explain what reasoning is. Though they've heard it, I don't like, especially in literacy, their ability to probably understand in math is not, or understand what it is different. So I would jump in there, and then we could apply almost to this question.
So, like in literacy, we've been learning about reasoning, which is when you it's probably why they're not clear on it. I'm not sure of the best definition.
So reasoning is when you connect your evidence with your answer. You could almost make a visual. It is explaining why your evidence, basically in short we could say it's explaining why your evidence matters.
We give reasoning. Explain why our evidence matters. For example, we'll use this question. Like if
Or actually, do you want to use this question since they have schema for it?
So when we explained why. Oh, see that. I'll give this back to them so they have it.
Yeah.
Why the uncle meant what he said. We have to give evidence and explain.
Yeah. And we could say that we gave.
Explain how the evidence connects to the answer. And then, like, to do that, and then I would introduce the criteria.
Yeah, it might be worth saying, like, what we, almost showing, like, what it isn't also. So, like, it might be worth showing a piece of students' work and, like, underlining all their evidence, but then the lack of explanation of, like, why it mattered. Or, like, or not why it mattered, but what even it means. And then you guys rewrite it using this criteria. You introduce a criteria, then the criteria. Maybe Jasmine's?
Yeah. Jasmine's evidence without reasoning. I'll explain.
Yep.
That, and then introduce the criteria. And then model how to answer the question. With criteria. Okay.
Yep.
And then they'll be able to try this next one. Or we can do it together. But with more of like a we do style.
Yep.
Okay. Should I script that one now too, or should we practice?
Let's actually script this one out right here where it says, so for this answer, let's write out what would be the ideal response students would write using reasoning, the criteria for reasoning.
So John says that both these shapes are parallelograms. Is he right? Explain why or why not. John is right. Because so what immediately comes to mind is he's right because parallelograms have two sets of parallel sides and both these shapes have two sets of parallel sides.
So what in that is your evidence?
That both these shapes have two sets of parallel sides.
And then what would be
the reasoning is that parallelograms have to have two sets of parallel sides.
And then these do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
I wonder even in your plan ahead on your notes to help you, and you write in two different colors of evidence and then the reasoning to start differentiating for yourself. Just like, do I see evidence and do I see the reasoning, so you don't get confused.
I'll use this.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. Sounds good. I like that. That helps me like see them separately.
Okay, so now for practice, I'd love for you to, as if I'm a student in your class, I'm actually Jasmine. Let's do this lesson right here, because I think this is where the meat of the like rollout and kind of understanding for kids is happening to get to this question. So let's do this one together. If you want to do it.
Alright. So Rocketeers, in literacy, you've been learning about reasoning, which is when you connect your evidence to your answer. And when we give reasoning, we have to explain why our evidence matters. Now, yesterday, you answered this question about our uncle saying that all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. And here's what I noticed. Many of you included evidence, and that's excellent. Right here it says that the rectangles are not always going to have equal sides. Evidence. But what we didn't include was reasoning. How does that evidence connect to the answer that not all squares or not all rectangles are squares? There's no connection there. I see the evidence, but there's no reasoning. And so we want to be able to include strong reasoning that helps connect our evidence to our answer. And to do that, we have to meet 3 criteria for excellent reasoning. The first one is that our reasoning has to confirm all parts of our answer. So let's look back at this question. Our uncle said, all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. How many parts are there to that claim?
2.
There are 2 parts. So we have to provide reasoning to support both parts. Reasoning that all squares are rectangles, and reasoning that not all rectangles are squares.